In 2012, a doctor set a man on fire accidentally while giving him a tracheotomy. His electronic scalpel set the oxygen ablaze, and the patient received second-degree burns. When doctors mess up, bad things can happen. Now, it's not easy being a doctor. On the one hand, they're one of the most respected professions in the world, but doctors are still only human. They make mistakes like the rest of us. The difference is, when doctors make mistakes, really bad things can happen. It can cost people their health and happiness, and sometimes it costs those doctors millions of dollars. Most of us have probably heard of malpractice cases. That's when a doctor fails to diagnose something, misdiagnoses, or doesn't act fast enough. Those cases are unfortunately pretty common, but sometimes those cases can also get pretty uncommon, by which I mean unusual. If you thought setting a man on fire was bad, just wait. Do you remember Dana Carvey? A breakout comedian and impressionist on Saturday Night Live, he also became a movie star as Garth in the Wayne's World movies. Now, Carvey retired from acting for a while in the early 2000s to focus on helping raise his kids. Guess why Carvey decided to step away like he did? Was it just to raise a family? Some people think it was due to a brush with death he experienced in his early 40s. Carvey's family has a history of high cholesterol. When he was 42, he was told one of his arteries was dangerously blocked. He underwent invasive surgery to clear the blocked artery. That landed him in the hospital. But it turns out the doctor responsible for the surgery cleared the wrong artery. In fact, the artery that got cleared didn't need it at all. And it gets worse. When he got a second opinion, another doctor determined he never needed the surgery. His blockage could be cleared through a simple procedure called an angioplasty. The surgery wasn't only unnecessary, but it put Carvey's life more at risk than the blocked artery itself. The experience was disturbing enough that Carvey filed a medical malpractice suit. He ended up winning $7.5 million, which he donated to charity. For Carvey, the suit wasn't about money, but preventing someone else from having to go through what he did. Have you ever heard of the surgery that wouldn't stop? A Connecticut man named Dean Taylor had to go to the hospital for a routine appendix surgery. It happens to a lot of people. But when doctors stitched Taylor up, they used the wrong sutures. So they had to perform a second surgery to take them out and put in the right sutures. But while they were putting in the new sutures, they ruptured his intestines. That required another surgery to repair his intestines. That went wrong too. Things went on like this for literally over 3 months. Taylor was finally discharged from the hospital after 131 days. Understandably, he was not happy. He sustained a number of injuries over the course of multiple surgeries, but the hospital and the doctors would not assume any responsibility for the ordeal. Taylor eventually sued, and a jury agreed that the medical staff had been negligent and awarded him $3.5 million. Thankfully, Dean Taylor is done with surgeries for a while. Sometimes, one hospital mistake is not an isolated incident. In the 1990s, Tampa, Florida man Willie King checked into University Community Hospital. He needed to have his right leg amputated due to complications from diabetes. The problem was, when he woke up from surgery, he was missing his left leg. So he only had 2 options: go to another hospital to receive the correct surgery and sue the first hospital. Thankfully, King received a pair of donated prosthetic legs and went on to lead a full and happy life. That's a good thing for King's sake, but also a lot of other people's too. It turns out that University Community Hospital had a history of negligent behavior. Around the same time as King's surgery, the hospital also botched other surgeries, operating on a patient's wrong knee and performing a tubal ligation on a woman as part of her C-section. King became the symbol of a patients' rights movement against the hospital. He eventually won $1.5 million. University Community Hospital became the subject of a state and federal investigation. They lost accreditation. That means that they could no longer perform elective surgeries, and they were also at risk of losing Medicare funding. The case attracted so much attention, it became the subject of a Jay Leno monologue. If your hospital ends up on The Tonight Show, you've either done something amazing or things have gone very, very wrong. We all know most kids would give a lot to miss school. They'd probably stop short of hospitalization, though. A 10-year-old girl went to the ER with seizure symptoms, thirst, and blurry vision. She was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes and administered insulin. But her symptoms persisted, and she was admitted to the ER multiple times over the next few days. Eventually, more testing determined she actually had type 1 diabetes. That meant that the insulin they gave her had been worsening her condition. Thankfully, she made a full recovery, but by the time she received a proper diagnosis, she'd spent over a month of school days in the hospital. That meant she had to do an entire school year over. Her parents weren't too pleased, and neither were the courts. The family was awarded $750,000 in damages for misdiagnosis and impact on her academic future. Hopefully, it went towards paying for a good college education. Sometimes, with medical malpractice, it's wrongful removal, but sometimes it's because they leave something behind. In 1999, bodybuilder Alexander Baez underwent cosmetic surgery. He wanted pectoral implants to increase his chances of winning future muscle competitions. When he woke up, though, he realized he'd received a very different type of implant. He now had a pair of C-cups. He was in shape to enter a bikini contest, not a muscle competition. And it turns out the doctor who performed the surgery wasn't even a doctor. His name was Reynaldo Silvestri. He was a con artist who had obtained false credentials to operate. Silvestri was tracked down in Belize, where he performed an additional 100 surgeries. He sometimes even used kitchen utensils instead of surgical instruments. Now, this case ends with jail time instead of a settlement. Silvestri was extradited back to the United States and sentenced to 7.5 years in a Florida prison. Sometimes a malpractice suit is weird because of the patient and not the doctor. Thomas Passmore was a Virginia construction worker who decided one day that his hand was evil. His right hand, to be specific. So deciding that there was only one course of action available to him, he picked up a circular saw and took off his own hand. Passmore's co-workers rushed him to the ER, where he angrily demanded doctors not reattach it. A psychiatrist was brought in, and Passmore was ruled to be of sound mind. To cover their bases, the hospital also consulted a judge on the matter. The judge said if they disobeyed Passmore's wishes, they would technically be committing assault and battery. That meant they could be sued and charged with a felony. So doctors obeyed his wishes and didn't reattach the hand. But sometime later, Passmore changed his mind. Going back on antipsychotic medications probably had a lot to do with that decision. Passmore decided that doctors had been negligent and sued the hospital for $3 million. At trial, the jury heard that the doctors and hospital had no way of knowing Passmore was psychotic. He had appeared to be perfectly normal and rational when he demanded to not undergo surgery. This is a cautionary tale to follow doctors' instructions about taking prescribed medications so you don't get into a dangerous state of mind to begin with. The wildest medical malpractice suit happened in 1986. A Philadelphia woman successfully sued a hospital that had performed a CT scan on her in the 1970s. Judith Hames argued that her career as a professional psychic had been ruined. She said it was derailed when the CT scan dye they injected her with gave her headaches. She said the headaches eliminated her ability to read auras, see the future, and help solve crimes. Hames got famous from a magazine article about seances she held for wealthy patrons, so her lawsuit made some headlines. The award was later overturned on appeal, and probably for good reason. I mean, come on. But that didn't stop Hames' husband Alan from publishing a book about the case, which was called Judith. Among other things, the book said the dye had robbed Hames of her ability to commune with the dead. As of 2024, Hames was still alive and living in Florida. She writes a newspaper advice column on the grief process. So what are the lessons we can learn from wild and unpredictable malpractice cases? The main one is this: when in doubt, consult your doctor. Most people who seek medical advice or attention go on to lead happy, healthy lives. However, there are wild cases where the medical professionals are in the wrong, and when that happens, people need legal help. So it's good to trust your doctor and listen to their advice, but if they mess something up and it affects your life, you have to get the help you need. Stay safe and healthy, and we hope no doctors give you the medicine that takes away your psychic powers. That's it for this episode of No Way That's Legal. If you want more stories about the crazy ways that the law interacts with everyday life, be sure to like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.